What's going on, guys? Real quick before we jump into today's episode, all about Airbnbs, pitching Airbnbs. I want to just remind you, if you're listening to this podcast before August 23rd, 2023, that you have got to join us this Wednesday on August 23rd, 2023 at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time for our free workshop, our gift to you, called the Six Figure Creator Workshop. 3 pillars is what we're covering. 3 pillars, which is going to be offers, lead generation, and money management. 3 pillars that really create a more profitable future for your business. I do not want you to miss this free training. It's going to be epic. If you're listening to this before August 23rd, make sure you hit the link in the description of this episode. Make sure you join us for that. All you got to do is sign up. We'll send you the link. You can jump on that call with us. It is going to be epic. Our whole community is going to be there. I would love to invite you to it as well. Seriously, like one of the best things that you could do for your business in the last half of this year is join a training like this, where we're unveiling a few things that have really helped myself and Christy, the host of this podcast, create 6-figure businesses in both the wedding space and the brand space. And we'd love for you to have these secrets, these things, so that you can make sure that you can get as close to it or crush that 6-figure marker in your own business. Now, listening to the podcast every single week is great. If you're a weekly listener, that's amazing. Please keep doing that. But getting in a Zoom room with us and a bunch of other people from the community and really getting to hash things out, we're going to have some Q&A at the end of the call, at the end of the workshop, is really where I think you're going to see a lot of gains when it comes to what you understand about business and how it applies to you, helping you grow your business. So August 23rd, 2023, 4:30 Pacific Standard Time. If it is before that date, you've got to click the link on this podcast episode and join us for that training. Now, here's the deal. We talked today in this podcast. This was a natural conversation I was having with a Creativ Rise Mastermind grad named Haydn Thomas. Hit me up, and Haydn was like, super cool dude. He's like, hey, man, I have a couple questions about Airbnb. Let's talk about it. I was like, great, let's do it. And quickly, we started having the conversation. He went, man, we should have clicked record on this. This is so good. And I went, well, why don't we do it? So we paused the conversation. We clicked record. I got him into our studio here, and we just talked about Airbnb, talked about pitching Airbnbs, how to pitch them, what not to do, some cool ways to figure out who owns it and how to get in touch with them. And so I hope you enjoy this episode on pitching Airbnbs. There was a good time in my life, probably like 3-4 years, where I traveled most of the year, probably 7 to 8 months out of the year. And I was so cheap. I hated paying for accommodation. So I used these strategies that we're talking about in today's episode that I was sharing with Haydn to give me free accommodation so I could save that money, baby. So I hope this episode's super helpful for you if you've ever wanted to travel to a different country, a different city, a different state, and stay anywhere for free by leveraging your skills as a creative. This is an episode for you. Please check it out. Can't wait for you guys to enjoy this episode with Haydn Thomas as we go back and forth talking about Airbnbs. Here we go. Alrighty. Okay. So Haydn Thomas, you are sitting in our studio here. This was a totally random podcast for everybody who's listening. Haydn and I were just having a conversation offline, talking about Airbnb, pitching Airbnbs, the whole shebang. Where's the leverage in that space? Is it worth it? Some of the advantages, disadvantages of it, the how. And he's like, dude, you should have recorded that. I was like, well, let's do it. So Haydn, welcome to the show. We were going to go back and forth. We're going to have a simple, easy conversation about Airbnb, and you're going to ask me some questions. I'm going to try and give you a good answer if I have one. And we're going to let the listeners in on our private conversation we were just having, because why not? Super fun. So quickly, kick it off. Your name's Haydn. What's your full name? Where you're from? And what's your business? And what's one thing you're excited about for this year?
Yeah, so I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, and then I do travel brand content creation. The majority of the time when I'm home, I do weddings and short-form content for local businesses and ministries. And then this next year, I'm just most excited about scaling my business and making new connections with creatives. Heck
yeah, super cool. So let's jump right on into the conversation we were having. Hey, it prompted from you asking me about Airbnb. Let's go all the way back to that. What was your main first question about Airbnb when you first just asked me about it a few minutes ago?
Yeah, so I'm going to do this, going for this conference later this year, and trying to find Airbnbs. I'm just like, how do I find them? How do I pitch them? And then you were saying just don't use the website. So if you want to go more into that.
Yeah, totally. So you were saying that you've pitched, how many have you pitched in Charleston? You pitched a ton of them, right?
I think I've pitched every Airbnb on Instagram I could find that's in Charleston. And then now I'm just trying to find out where the rest of them are without getting banned on the platform.
Yeah. So that's the question is, where are these Airbnb owners hanging out and how do you get in touch with them? Because Talk to me about the issue you know of that happens
Yeah.
on Airbnb when you pitch people on Airbnb.
Yeah. So after pitching a couple, I've had a couple strikes. They've sent me some nice messages saying that my account might get suspended. They might ban me. I've had to create a new account in the past when I was pitching Airbnbs for Iceland. So really this time I'm just trying to avoid that and not have to create a new account.
Yeah. Yeah. So the problem is, just to really clarify that for everyone who's new to the idea of pitching Airbnbs, Verbos, whatever it's going to be, if you pitch on the Airbnb platform, it goes against the Airbnb policy guidelines. And the reason why is they do not want you, one, taking revenue away from the hosts, because when you take revenue away from the host, meaning you're not paying for the stay, you're getting it for free, or you're getting paid to go and stay there. The host is not making money, which means Airbnb doesn't get their cut. So their entire business model falls when they're being used as the source, the lead generation for the conversation and the connection, but they're not getting a cut because there's no payment. So the policy is basically if you ever DM a host on Airbnb or you DM a property and say, hey, like I'm a creator, I would love to come and work for you. After a few of those, you might get a message from Airbnb saying like, you're going to get shut down. You're not allowed to send these messages anymore. And Haydn and I were talking about how there's actually a deeper level to that us as creatives are going to be aware of. It's not just hurting us, because Haydn, you just said, well, I'd have to create another account.
Yeah.
So some people might be thinking, well, that's not a big deal. I'll go create another account and just keep pitching. But I then told you one of the reasons why you might not be getting as many responses as you thought on Airbnb is because it actually can hurt the account of the people responding or receiving the message. So if I owned an Airbnb and Haydn messaged me and said, hey, I want to do, a trade for free, how do we set this up? If I engage in that, I can also get in trouble from Airbnb, which sucks when you're someone who's trying to make money off Airbnb with a property. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not like super common knowledge. So the question is, Haydn, what do we do about that? Right?
Yeah.
That was your question, right?
Yeah.
So, Haydn, outside of that, based on our conversation, reciprocate what you heard me saying about that. What are some of the ways that you think we could navigate that we were talking about?
Yeah. So you're just saying that you just have to be really good. My biggest takeaway is just like, you have to be really good at finding these people, diving into Instagram, looking up maybe old websites that they created. You can sometimes find their contact info on there. Snooping on LinkedIn, you could potentially find some people on there. But it comes down to the core is like, you kind of just have to find out where these people might be, and just go crazy on the web, looking them up and then looking their Airbnb up.
Yeah, totally. So you got to get super, super good at creeping people. And you just mentioned obviously Instagram, and you said that you've been trying to find these people on Instagram. It's not easy though. Sometimes really hard.
No, it's not.
So if you can't
you
find
have to
them
really
on
want it.
Yeah. If you can't find them on Instagram, head to Google, because you can Google the property, the address, or the Airbnb name, and you might actually be able to find a property-owned website. Now, a property-owned website exists. Simply, a lot of them have them because they want to be able to, in the beginning especially, when they don't have an Airbnb listing that's really generating them a lot of leads because maybe they're way down on the rankings, they want to take payments through their own website because it's obviously going to cut Airbnb out of the deal. They save more money. They make more money in the end. So sometimes you can find these websites and they have an inquiry button, right? Which is really important. So start with Instagram. If you can't find them on Instagram, head over to Google the heck out of them, the address, see what you can find. And the goal is to either find an email to inquire with or to find the property owner's name. And if you can find the property owner's name, I'm going to throw you on the spot here, Haydn. If you were to find a property owner's name, how would you then try and get in contact with them? How would you try and find their contact? If you only had their name, what would you try and do?
I think I'd first start on LinkedIn. And if I have no luck there, I'd move to either Instagram or Pinterest. Would be my next two options.
Totally. So Instagram and LinkedIn would be my first start as well. Super big. And then Facebook for sure, because Facebook is typically, occupied by older people, and older people typically own investment properties. It's not a ton of 15 to 25-year-old owning these. So take the name you find, if you find the property owner's name, and just go berserk on all platforms trying to get in touch with them. Now, Haydn, here's my question for you, because I know you've been pitching a lot of Airbnbs, and through the trial and error of pitching a lot, you've learned a few things that have helped. So once you find their contact information, what are you doing? What are you saying to them?
Yeah, I'm kind of just pitching them on like, hey, I would like a free month's stay for a month's worth of content, basically. And then also trying to get them on the phone and just trying to figure out what their actual content needs are. Do they have an Instagram? If they don't have an Instagram, then being like, hey, you should create one. And then maybe we could turn you into a retainer. So kind of just trying to do a content for free stay is what I'm pitching them on primarily.
Totally. And how's it working?
I've got like 2 responses, and both of them are saying that I can come. I just can't come on the weekends. So I'm like, what would you say for pitching them or trying to walk them through letting me stay on the weekends?
Yeah. So let's start with the weekends thing, because I think this is an important question. And just as the reality of a lot of people's lives, they can only really travel. A lot of content creators in the earlier stages, because it might not be their full-time job, they're wanting to go and start working with Airbnbs, but they can only go on the weekend. But the problem with the weekend is the weekend's when Airbnbs make their most money, because that's the higher, it's like hotels. You charge more on the weekend than you charge during the weekday. So you would get a lot of responses, and I've had a lot of responses like this early on in me trying to learn how to pitch all these Airbnbs. You were just telling me before we started hitting record here that you're getting this response of, hey, Haydn, you can come, but we don't want you to come on those dates because it's over a weekend. That's not going to work for us. Really what they're saying there is the value I see in you is less than the money I'm getting paid on the weekend. And so you've got to rewrite that narrative for them. And that's what's really important. So I told you this right before you hit record. I'm going to say it again for everybody who's listening now, but it is crucial that you learn how to sculpt a good offer, a good Airbnb offer, and you can communicate, guys. It's not just about sculpting a good offer. It's not about having good photos. Those things are all important. It is solely about making sure your offer is attractive and then making sure you know how to communicate your offer. Because you could have the greatest pitch in the world for an Airbnb, but if it's communicated wrong, the Airbnb owner is not going, or the property management company is not going to receive it well. So I always say you've got to really make sure that you overextend the amount of communication you have around the fact that the value that you are going to be generating for them in creating the content or whatever you're going to be doing while you're staying at this Airbnb for free, or maybe getting paid a little bit, massively outweighs if they were to keep those calendar dates open on the Airbnb platform and booking them. So again, a lot of Airbnb hosts do not want to have content creators come over the weekend because they're like, I charge $450 per night on the weekend and I can only charge $375 on weekdays. So why don't you come on a weekday? Because the weekends are where I make my most money. So my response to that would be, okay, I need to come up with a really good offer that's going to be really attractive to them and show them how me coming on a weekend, doing what I'm going to do, is going to 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10x the value they'd be receiving from just a typical tenant coming in for a 2-night stay on a weekend, paying $475, so $850 for the whole weekend. That's a question, Haydn. How would you then respond to that of them saying you can't come on a weekend? How would you respond then and say, this is going to be, in the ballpark of value of like $5,000. So I really just want to make sure I can communicate this well to you, because if you miss out on this opportunity, of course you're going to get your $850, but you might be missing out on me being able to give you like $5,000 worth of value. And I would really want to make sure you get that. Like, that's a totally different conversation than, oh, okay, I guess I'll come on a weekday when it's cheaper. That makes you look like you don't have a ton of value, right?
Yeah. And I think something that stuck out to me that you mentioned before we started recording was that most of your pitch has to be like confronting those contradictions that they're going to be like, we can't have you stay because of this. Yeah. So just in the initial pitch, just saying like, hey, I know that these might be some reasons. This is why it is worth it for me to come, because you're getting $4 or $5,000 worth of free content for a free night stay or a 2-night stay.
Totally. So Airbnb pitches are all about, I love what you just said, because I'll touch on that for a second. Airbnb pitches are all about handling those objections up front. You got to believe that it's a half decent Airbnb. They get pitched all the time. Like, creatives pitch all the time, right? People like you, Haydn, people like myself pitch all the time. So it's important that you stick out and you look very different than all the other people that are pitching. What's the best way to stand out from the rest of the crowd? It's by acknowledging that there's a crowd. One of my favorite things to do in my Airbnb pitch is, hey man, what's up? It's Joey. I'm going to keep this really quick because I know you get pitched by people like me all the time. But if you just read for the next minute and a half this email or this Instagram DM, or even if I send it through the Airbnb platform, I take a risk because I really want to take a chance on the property.
and potentially risk pissing off the owner because, again, that puts them at risk policy-wise. But when I send that email, hey, I want to, you give yourself 2 minutes to read through this email, I'll show you why this opportunity is more valuable and it's different than all the other people that pitch you all the time. That right away, I'm already handling the objection of, I get pitched all the time. Why are you any different than anybody else, right? So right off the bat, I want to make sure they know that I understand that they get pitched all the time. If you pitch an Airbnb, this goes for brands too, but if you pitch an Airbnb and you act like you're the only person that's pitched them, that week, month, year, guaranteed they don't want to respond to you because you're probably coming at it from a very egotistical spot, where if you come at it and really level the playing field, hey man, I know you probably get 5, 10, 15, 20, maybe even more of these a week. I just want to really make sure that I'm aware that this is a different opportunity than everybody else. And so I really want you to make sure you read this for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, following up that, you got to make sure your offer is different, right? And this is where it gets a little bit complicated. Hey, we were talking about this earlier. What do you actually offer in Airbnb? That's the question, right? Because the only reason why an Airbnb would ever say no to you, the only reason why anyone who would ever say no to you in sales when you're trying to sell somebody on something is the only reason for no is the value they feel like they're getting is not worth what it's going to cost them. So at an Airbnb owner's perspective, they're going, the value of what Haydn seems to be giving me, is it worth a 1 or 2 night stay, a week stay, a month stay, or is it not? That's the only question they're asking in their head. So let's jam on that. Let's jam on what you offer. So I talked about this a little bit earlier. I gave you a few things that Christy and I typically offer Airbnbs, especially offer higher end Airbnbs that cost anywhere from like $850 to like $1,200 a night. These are expensive Airbnbs. Some of the ones that Christy and I have traveled to for vacations, for our honeymoon, we did this. Question is, you got to offer them something pretty sweet to be able to get into that Airbnb. So what were a few things that we talked about?
Yeah, it was just like, what kind of content will stand out for them? And you saying some, maybe you dive into their Airbnb site and you see like they don't have a lot of lifestyle photos. So just kind of saying like, hey, there's a trend going on right now where people want to see themselves in the environment that they're going to book at or they're going to go stay at. So just having people maybe on the porch looking at the sunset at the beach, just having a nice glass of coffee or whatever. Just putting that on your website will get you more bookings. Or even taking advantage of Insta360 stuff, like you were saying, if you want to explain that, where you had in your mouth.
Yeah, kind of money. So I had an opportunity, a friend of mine, a lot of people think I got paid to do this. I did not get paid to do this. A friend of mine owns a glamping place in Ontario in Canada, where I'm from. And he opened this place, I think last summer, just before last spring, maybe. So spring of 2022, I believe. And he said to me and my wife, hey, before we open, do you guys want to come out and just like see it? And he's a good friend of mine. I was like, of course. And he's like, hey, if you want to do a little bit of content, that's awesome, but like no pressure. Just come and see it. Come check it out. And me being his friend, I was like, oh, I want to help him. I'll definitely make a little bit of content for him and just give it to him. So we get there. There are these like, they're not glass, but they look like they're glass domes that you sleep in. Beautiful. Him and his brother are phenomenal at carpentry. So they've decked these places out. Check it out on Instagram. It's called Back 40 Glamping. They've done a beautiful job. Anyways, I show up. Christy and I hang out. We shoot a couple photos for them. And then I'm like, oh, I found this Insta360 in my bag. And for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's like a 360 camera. I literally turn it on, stick the thing in my mouth. And I'm walking around, I'm walking through the Airbnb, follow Christy to walk into this glass dome. And I literally just walked. It was like a 7 to 10 second clip. I walked around the bed, walked into the bathroom, and then I walked back to the bed. Christy fell back on her back. That video got 1.5 million views in the next 7 days on TikTok on my account. And it booked them $90,000 worth of bookings in a month. Crazy. It literally booked out like the whole first month and a half, 2 months, 3 months of their property, which was a brand new Airbnb business. Like they literally didn't even have plumbing when I was there. The plumbing was getting put in like the next week. So this is a business that was brand new. And I just asked myself the question, what could I do that would be a little bit different that I also have seen is a little bit like of a style that would be trending or interesting online. It was like that POV looking like down in my bag, my hands. It looks like you're playing a video game, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm walking through this Airbnb and it booked them a massive amount of money because it blew up. Now, you obviously cannot control if these videos are going to pop or if they're not going to pop. But this is what I always tell Airbnb owners. When I go, when I pitch an Airbnb, I say to them, hey, I have this case study. I helped one Airbnb do 90 grand in less than a month of bookings from one video I made.
Yeah.
So like the odds of that happening again, not super high. You can never control the algorithms, but I'll tell you, you will never get a shot like that if you're not in the game. If you never post any content that has like some virality to it, you'll never have the opportunity to do 90 grand of bookings off one video. So you might as well let me come and we can take our best shot, make as many pieces as we can, our best shot at creating something like that that's going to help your business pop, your Airbnb listing, your property skyrocket. So that business that I'm talking about is now one of the most like well-known Airbnb experiences in probably like 100-mile radius of Toronto, which is one of the third biggest city in all of North America. So they crank. They can't build new domes quick enough. Like they keep building new domes because they have so much opportunity because so many people want to come and stay at the property. And they're booked out. I looked on their Instagram the other day and I was talking to my friend who owns it. His name's Ben. They're full. They've been full till the end of the year since like, I think early June. And so people are like, oh, that's cool. Like they're booked out. And then they're like, so like, what time can we come this year? He's like, no, we're booked out. He's like, well, I know you're booked out. But like, do you have any dates? He's like, no, we're like booked out for the rest of the year. They have 3 domes right now built. They're building more for the rest of the year. That business is booked out every single day of the year based off of that one video that booked them a ton of money. But more importantly, it got their brand out there and they've done a great job continuing to do content and building a brand. So the opportunity is endless when something actually pops for these Airbnbs, but they'll never have that opportunity if they're out of the game, right?
Yeah. And you made a really good point there because I know that I struggled with this when last year, and I've heard this a lot from a couple of my friends, is that when we're like giving these brands content, when we're giving Airbnbs content, and they go, how can we know that this is going to work? Or Airbnb people like, if we pay you for this, how we know that we're going to get a return on it? And you made a really good point there where it's just like, well, are you posting anything? Because if you're not posting anything or your posting isn't that great quality, or maybe you're posting once every month, then this is a better chance.
Yeah, I can guarantee you it's not you're not going to get a return, right? It's a guarantee versus a guarantee. It's like, I can guarantee you if you do this with me, you'll be in the game and there'll be opportunity for a crazy, brand growth or revenue growth thing or booking growth to happen. But I can guarantee you if you don't take this opportunity with me and you're not playing in the game, you're sitting on the bench, it's never going to be an opportunity that comes by you, right? Totally.
Yeah.
Totally, man. Okay, so all of that, the question for a lot of people is probably now like, what do you say when you pitch an Airbnb? So what do you think? And again, we haven't had this conversation, so this is just going to be back and forth. This might be like a total alignment moment, or maybe there'll be some opportunity for us to go back and forth and improve each other's pitches. But what do you think a great Airbnb pitch would consist of?
Yeah. So right off the bat, something I try to prioritize is just making it all about them. I don't want to come into the pitch just saying like, hey, I'm a great photographer. Hire me. I think I start off my pitch, if I can remember it, is I have a hook in there just to get them to open my DM or my pitch on their Airbnb app if I want to risk it. But kind of then just after that, I say something along the lines of, hey, I want to elevate your Airbnb listing. I want to give you content for the next month, like a month's worth of content. And ultimately, my goal is to just increase your sales and make sure, because the holiday season's coming up, but to make sure that you're booked out through the holiday. And then back to what we were just talking about. And then I touch on it a little bit, but like, hey, if you're not posting, I can get you guys started. Is kind of what my pitch consists of right now. And then at the end of that, I go, and if you're interested, I would love to jump on a call. And then like, I'm not soliciting money because Airbnb, whatever. I would love to stay for a free night in exchange for the content. Is something along those lines.
Totally. That's great. So I want to talk about that last line. You said, I'm not soliciting for money. I just want a free stay. This is something interesting that you should try to play around with, Haydn. I've done this in the past where you actually pitch Airbnbs on cash deals. Okay. And the reason why I say this is because I noticed a trend when I started pitching Airbnbs and traveling for everyone who's listening, just for some context, I traveled probably 8 months out of the year from like 2016-ish, 2017, maybe all the way through like the end of 2018. I was traveling so much, and I stayed at free Airbnbs everywhere. Like I pitched everywhere, rarely ever paid to stay anywhere. But in the early days of pitching, I noticed that I would get a lot of no's from people because what I was pitching them didn't seem valuable enough, because I was just saying, hey, give me a free stay. So for them, it was like, well, I could either get money from somebody, or I could take a risk on this kid who wants to stay in our place for free. He says he's going to give us some content, but he's willing to do it for free. So that's only like a $300 deal for him. And that doesn't seem very expensive for like a pro. So I started actually pitching cash deals, knowing that I probably wasn't going to get a cash deal, but I'd pitch the cash deal and then I'd negotiate with them in conversation and probably end up doing it for free. But they would be leverage over them. Like, hey, I typically would do this for $1,200, but because I really love your property, we're in the area, the people I'm with are excited to do a few things there. Let's do this thing. And to be honest, I would just really love to support you in our property because I think it's gorgeous. I'll do it for free. That is a totally different conversation than, hey, please let me come to your place for free. Totally different when you say it's typically cost this, but I would do it for this because I love your property and let's get it done. It makes them seem like they're getting a deal, right? Which they are. Like you shooting a property on Airbnb for free, that's really only costing you, if you were to book it for 2 nights, maybe like $600 total, $300 a night, and you're doing like $1,200 of work. That is a deal for them, right?
Yeah.
So
and
they also know the value of what you're doing.
Yeah, it also gets around what we talked about earlier, where just coming up front of me like a cash deal, where they just see that value immediately, and then they might let you stay on the weekend because they're like, oh, this is a $5,000 deal. And then you talk to them and they eventually let you stay for free. And then they're like, they see the value and they're not like second guessing it.
Yep. So the one thing I would say with that though is be cautious about not overestimating the value, or even if you're not overestimating it, it truly is the value. Like if I was to put in this much time, like for like a brand, I could charge $5,000, but if you're like, hey, I could do this for $5,000, so let's talk about it, and then all of a sudden you end up doing it for free, it kind of makes you look like you devalued everything. So, but if it's like, hey, I typically would do this for like $1,200, but for this time, I'd love to build a relationship with you guys. Maybe even we could come back once a quarter and help you continue to fill your social calendar. Again, to be in the game so that you have more opportunity to actually be seen. More eyes means more awareness. More awareness means more bookings. I'd love to do that. So let's do it. I'll do it for free. You know what I mean? So
and then potentially getting a retainer.
So let's talk about that. So that's the other opportunity with all of this, right? Is every single time you pitch an Airbnb and you get a successful Airbnb pitch, especially if you pitched cash deals, there's opportunity for you to find ways to actually make money off this client. So here's a couple examples. If you go and you just stay at the Airbnb and it's a free exchange, free stay for some content, you can then pitch them on managing the content. So, hey, I gave you some content for your Airbnb listing, but I noticed you're not on social. Here's a package that's going to get you on social. And then I'll come once every 2 months and we'll do a 1 to 2 night stay. I'll bring a couple friends who can be the models, and we'll make sure that we get you some awesome content. And then I'll be on a posting schedule of like 3 or 4 times a week. Again, why does that matter for you, Airbnb owner? Because if you're not doing that and you're only relying on Airbnb's listing, Airbnb's platform and algorithm to make sure that people see your listing and then want to book you, you might be losing to a competitor down the street who's got an Instagram brand who people are seeing every day and they're making more bookings. So I want to make sure you're playing the same game, Mrs. Clara, whatever her name is. So let's do it, So there's some opportunity there for a retainer as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, and that can bring relationships and lots of other deals, because I when I was looking on Instagram, I saw that a lot of Airbnbs were following a lot of real estate agents and creators, but they're all kind of connected in the same area. So just building that relationship with one Airbnb can spread to other opportunities maybe later down the line.
Totally. Here's another thing. You want to talk about a really, really sneaky way to find who the Airbnb owners are? You ready for this?
I would love to hear it.
You ready for this? You go to an Airbnb, you take the address, put it in Redfin or Zillow, see the last time it sold, See if you can pull up the sale record, see who sold it, what real estate agent sold it. Contact the real estate agent and say, I have an opportunity for your prior client at this location, and I would love to give you a percentage of the deal if it lands. Can you please give me their contact information?
That's actually amazing, because I was going to ask you about that, because I've seen more real estate agents doing hashtag Charleston Airbnbs or whatever. I was like, I need to find out a way to pitch them that solves that problem.
Exactly. Every Airbnb that's ever become an Airbnb first had to be sold, and who is always in that transaction? Realtors. They have all the relationships with the people, the investors that have now turned these things into Airbnbs. So there you go. Yeah. Or you can hit up, maybe it's a real estate agent that sold it to a property management company. Hey, can you give me the management company's name, or give me, the owner of the management company, or just like an admin there, whatever it's going to be. Okay, let's wrap this thing up. That was almost 30 minutes talking about Airbnbs. That was super fun. Yeah. There's my question for you. You are, just quickly, where have you been in the last 9 months? Name all the places you've been.
Yeah, so let's see. I was in Iceland for 2 weeks in May.
Which was primarily free, correct?
Yeah, that was all free. Yeah. I got paid to go on that. Yeah,
unreal. Which is amazing, because that was your goal before you joined the mastermind last fall. Yeah. That was your goal. You're like, I just want to figure out how to get paid to travel. And the first trip post mastermind was to Iceland, and that looked like an epic trip.
It was such a good trip. I took too many brands on it, but it was an epic trip. But after Iceland, I went out west for 2.5 weeks and took less brands on that, but also got paid for that trip. And then I was home for a little bit, and then I went to Africa for 2 weeks. And that was with a different organization, but I was able to bring one brand on board. Cool. So it kind of offset the cost for that, and then also potentially getting a tax write-off for that. And then I'm going to India in 2 weeks to shoot for a ministry, and that's also a huge tax write-off. And then planning 2 other trips later this year for Southeast Asia, which are also shooting for brands and also getting paid for that, which is so cool.
So cool. Okay. So I got 2 questions to wrap this up. One is going to be about the tax write-off thing, because I want to mention that, because I know you just mentioned that twice, and that is a really cool little hack that most people don't know about. But before we get there, from today's conversation, because this whole conversation sparked because you asked me, hey, can I have a conversation with you about Airbnb stuff? What are you taking away from today's conversation and taking into your future pitches? Because obviously, based on what you said, you're traveling everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
It's really nice to get some free accommodation. So what are you going to take away from today's combo?
I think the biggest thing is just how to find Airbnbs is just what I was struggling with the most. That was huge that you were able to answer that for me. And then also just making it more about them and different ways to pitch them. Just being I was saying I'll give you more photos, but then you were saying they probably already all have photos. Maybe do some lifestyle stuff or the Insta 360 stuff, just to change it up and make you a little bit more unique in what you're offering. With that, and then just also saying trying to do a cash offer. Just incorporating that into my pitch is probably the biggest takeaway that I have from this.
Cool. I love it, man. Well, I can't wait for you to test things out, and then for me to hear about how it's going. So here's my last question for you. One of the biggest, most underused, underdeveloped, underknown, not developed, but one of the most not known things that can really help you on taxes as a creator is using tax donation receipts to your benefit as a creative. We talked about this in the mastermind. You and I have talked about this. We have a shared love for working and helping benefit nonprofits and different ministries. So they have something that businesses cannot give you, which is the opportunity to give you a tax receipt. Talk to me about that. Why is that an attractive thing for you? Why is it a win-win? And why should people maybe consider it that are listening to the show?
Yeah, and you'll have to correct me on some of this if I'm wrong about it. But let's say that you're super passionate about shooting for a certain nonprofit or ministry, but they can't pay you what you're worth. They can give you a tax. Yeah. That's every nonprofit. Yeah. They can give you a tax write-off for the amount that they can't pay you, or if you need a big tax write-off, they can give you the entire thing in a tax write-off. So this upcoming India trip, they can't pay me for it, but they're bringing me out, but they can't pay me to do it. So they're giving me roughly a $5,000 tax write-off, which, means I don't have to pay as many taxes later this year. It
Yeah.
just helps out balance that. But then also if you have like, let's say a church, for example, you're doing short form content for them and you have them on a monthly retainer, and your monthly retainer price is like, let's say $2,000, but they can't pay that and you charge them like $1,000 or 900, they can give you the rest of that and a tax write-off. And then maybe at the end of the year, you have a 20, a 10, 15, 20 grand write-off, tax write-off
Yeah.
at the end of the year.
Yeah, I love it. So you did a great job explaining it. I'll reiterate it and then fill in maybe a gap. So
Awesome.
how it works is just like Haydn said, one of the best ways to use working with nonprofits as an advantageous part of your tax strategy is if a nonprofit can't pay you, which is a lot of them because they don't have a ton of cash, you can donate your time. That's really what it is. You're donating your time and your services. And because you're not getting an exchange of cash, they can write you a donation receipt saying, Haydn just gave us this many videos, this many this, and he invoiced us $5,000, but we could only pay him $700. So we are going to be giving him a $4,300 donation receipt saying that he donated his time and services to our nonprofit. And nonprofits have the status where they can write you tax receipts for donations, where a normal for-profit business can't do that. And Hayden, I loved you mentioned that it's advantageous for you at tax season because it's a win for the nonprofit because they're obviously able to only pay you $700 rather than the $5,000. So they're saving a ton of money, but still getting all the value from you. And it's a win for you because at the end of the season, at the end of the year, you as a creative have to pay taxes on what you keep, your profit, right? And so what counts against your profit? Well, the only thing that counts against your profit is expenses or donation receipts, eligible charitable donation receipts. So if you have a tax receipt from a nonprofit that said, hey, Haydn did $4,300 of donated work for us. Let's say you had to pay $10,000 in taxes that year. You then wage that $4,300 tax donation receipt against your $10,000 of payable taxes, and it brings down your taxes, which is so cool. So at the end of the day, you're not getting upfront cash for the deal, but in a way, it's still like getting the same amount of value on your end. You know, like I remember taking, even this past year, we did a consulting deal with an organization near us, a nonprofit, and we helped them with a bunch of brand stuff, helped them launch a podcast, doing some really cool stuff. They're awesome. And we took I think it was like a $10,000 to $15,000 tax receipt from them because that's what we would have billed them for, but they didn't have the money to pay us that. And I said, that's no problem, but I know my tax bill is going to be multiple 5 figures if I don't do anything about it. So I use different things like this to bring my taxes down, but at the same time, it benefits a nonprofit massively, which is really cool. So Airbnb to talking about tax strategy. I love it, but that's really, really cool. I love that you mentioned that. Well, dude, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I love that you asked the question in the first place and we had a fun conversation about it. And then I love that you were then like, hey, we should record this. And I was like, totally. So, dude, thanks so much, man. It's great seeing you, great chatting. And I love what you're building. Super cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Alrighty, dude. We'll catch you on maybe as a listener on the next show. Maybe you can tune into the next show.
I listen to every show.
Podcast, but I guess you'll be listening to the next one. Alrighty, bro. Catch you in a bit.
All right. See ya.
Well, what an episode talking all about Airbnb strategy and just getting to hang out with Haydn. Haydn is an awesome dude who just about a year ago when we first met, he joined the Creativ Rise 6-week mastermind as a dude who had some ambitions to build a creative business, but was just fresh out of high school, didn't really have a lot of income coming in, but again, really had some ambitions. And now just to hear about all the places he's been in a year because he's implemented the business strategy that he learned from the mastermind, took him all over the world, continues to take him all over the world, like getting paid to do what he loves, getting paid to travel, which is so, so cool. So there's a lot of people just like Haydn. Maybe it's you listening to the show. Maybe you're a creative making less than 6 figures a year. Maybe it's less than 50 grand a year. And you really, really want to break the creative struggle. You want 2023 and the end of 2023, 2024 specifically, to be the year where you're like, wow, I'm actually getting paid to do what I love. I'm succeeding at doing what I love, which is hopefully for you running a creative business and running a profitable creative business. So maybe you want to quit your 9 to 5. Maybe you want to get paid thousands of dollars for every single job you do, making like 3 to 10 grand every single job you do. Like how cool would that be? Maybe you want to travel the world and get paid to do it just like Haydn. But most importantly, you want to build a 6-figure business. Well, if that is you, then I would love to introduce you to the best tool we believe on the face of the internet to help you learn the business strategy you need, then give you a community to keep you accountable so you can actually implement these things and grow your business. It's called the Creativ Rise Mastermind. If you've listened to the show for a while, you've heard us talk about it a bunch. You maybe even heard people who have been through it come on here and share what they've learned about business and what it's helped them create in their lives, what it's helped them accomplish. And they've talked to you maybe through the show about their experience in the mastermind and how much of a catalyst it was for them. Well, we've run this thing 9 times. There's been 248 people, 248 businesses, if you think about it that way, that have gone through our 6-week Creativ Rise Mastermind, which is incredible. And the best part about this is every single one of those 248 people decided that they needed to learn more about business so they could actually run a business. Pretty simple, but it's not typically what a lot of us creatives do. A lot of us creatives just think our creative is what's going to get us paid, our work's going to get us paid, and it's just not true. We all know that's not true, even though we tell ourselves that. I know a lot of people who are way more talented than me, yet they never built a 6-figure business as a brand photographer like I did, or way more people that are more talented than my wife, Christy, who's also the host of this podcast. And still, they didn't build a 6-figure wedding business like she did. And then she transitioned and built a 6-figure commercial and brand business. That is all because of business strategy. It's not necessarily just about our creative talent. And so if that is you, I would love to invite you to consider joining the next round of the Creativ Rise Mastermind. Now, we only take 35 spots every single time because we have to keep it intimate to make sure that Christy and I can really be hands-on the way that we know we want to, so we can help you actually get the results that your business deserves and that you're paying for, that you're investing for, right? And so just quick, I want to share a couple of the things that you're going to learn in the mastermind, and I'm going to talk about the dates and when it's starting and how you can get involved. So the mastermind is incredibly cool because we cover everything you need, but nothing you don't. Everything you need, but nothing you don't need in order to really build a great foundation to build a 6-figure business. Week 1 is all about redefining your identity as a creative, which we're going to talk about if you jump on in. You've probably heard us talk about it before on the podcast. It's all about becoming a problem solver. And then we talk about mastering your brand that week. So it's laying a really good foundation as a problem solver, creating good offers, and then mastering the brand around that so you can communicate that to the world well. Week 2 is all about bulletproofing your services. So taking the offers you want to build, really building them out using our offer frameworks that we show you how to create a 6-figure offer as a creative. And then it's building out your services around those offers. And this is where pricing comes in, how to sell all these things. All of that is pumped into week 2. Week 3 is all about your network, is your net worth. So I've gotten the opportunity to work with some of the biggest brands in the industries that I was in. Christy, the same with her. And that comes because of a relationship. So week 3 is all about teaching you how to build profitable relationships in a way that's not sleazy, slime baggy, like a lot of people feel networking typically is. We're going to show you a couple actual systems that we use that really make networking feel more natural. It's a win-win for everybody, and it often leads to more profitable deals. That's week 3. Week 4 is called the art of marketing. I've had multiple people tell me that have gone through the Creativ Rise Mastermind that they learned more in week 4 of the Creativ Rise Mastermind about marketing than they did in a 4-year marketing degree that cost them $100,000 at a university. So week 4 is all about how to actually market yourself as creative, how to actually sell what you do in a really, really profitable way. Week 5 is all about scaling all of that. So scaling your offers, scaling your relationships, scaling your marketing to really grow a 6-figure business. Week 6 is all about the healthy hustle. Okay. So this is all about if you can't figure out how to do this in a healthy way, then you're going to burn out, and we don't want that. So Christy and I have both burnt out in our careers at different points. And so we give you armor to protect yourself from that. So all of these things are what creates incredible results within people. And there's been so many. Just to highlight a few, we had Rebecca joined the mastermind a couple rounds ago, and she added $75,000 to her business that year while shooting half the time. If you want to hear about that story, head on over to creativrise.com/ what is that? I can't remember what the / is. You'll see it in the description here, but you can watch all these videos. It's also on the main page of creativrise.com. You can see that. Kyler added a $50,000 deal to his business by learning our pitching framework. Incredible. You can see the video on that too. Peter built a $20,000 consistent monthly recurring revenue gig. Literally, he's making an extra $20,000 because he shifted his offer when he came into the mastermind, and he simplified. And because of that, he's really been able to go wide in that niche. And he's done super well, adding $20,000 to his recurring revenue every single month. Guys, that's over $200,000 a year. That's incredible. Sarah quit her job and went full-time right after the mastermind and hit six figures in her first year because of the foundation she laid in the mastermind and because of the friends, the community that she built that supported her and kept her accountable. Matt is one of my favorite stories. Matt went from making $15K a year as a creative to making $15K a month 1 year in the 1 year outside of the mastermind. Took the mastermind, within the following year, literally went from $15K a year to $15K a month. The dude is crushing it. And then so many other stories, guys, but I'll wrap up with this one. Logan doing 22K months right now, and he's 20 years old. That's incredible. That does not happen without pure, solid business strategy backed by a good business foundation. Every single person I just mentioned went through the Creativ Rise Mastermind and really understood that, hey, I've got to take this business thing more seriously if I want to run a profitable, successful business. And so here is the dates you guys need to understand, okay? September 10th is when the mastermind starts. We are going from September 10th for 6 weeks. Cannot wait. It's going to be so, so fun. But it launches for applications on August 28th, okay? So this thing is application only. We typically get about 3 to 4 times the applications for those 35 spots we even have. So it's application only. Really want to make sure that we are going through those applications and make sure the right people who fit the bill of what we're really looking for to make sure we can help them with their businesses. But most importantly, people that are just ready and really committed to grow, ready to put in the time, ready to make the investment, not only with their finances to jump into this thing, but really the investment with their courage, their confidence, their willingness to connect with other people. So the application launches on August 28th. However, if you're listening to this before August 28th, you can get on the wait list by going to creativrise.com or just click on the link in the description of this podcast. And that wait list, once the application launches, we're going to give you guys the application first. Again, because they're always like so many people racing the application. Waitlisters get the application first, and the wait list typically fills 80 to 90% of the spots in the first couple days. And then you also get $100 off if you're on the wait list, and you get over $800 of extra bonus courses when you are on the wait list. So I cannot wait for this next round of the Creativ Rise Mastermind, guys. We bleed, literally bleed. I don't know why I'm saying bleed, but it keeps us up at night here. Like the idea of helping people build 6-figure businesses, the same way I've done it for myself. And it's been so incredible for my life. Christy's done it both in the brand space and in the wedding space. It's been so incredible for her life. We want you to experience that same freedom and the benefits of owning a profitable creative business. And so if you're looking to make your first 6 figures and you're looking to make your first 50K and eventually 6 figures down the road, whatever it's going to be, the Creativ Rise Mastermind is going to be the best spot for you to learn how to do that. Get all the shortcuts in 6 weeks, get a community that's ready to support you as you do it, make a ton of new friends, and most importantly, get the accountability that backs off the community you're going to get, which is really going to make sure you implement what you need so that you can grow your business in 2023 and boom in 2024. So hit the link in the description of the show if you want to get any of the detail on that. Again, the dates you need to understand. If you're before August 28th, you can get on the wait list to get discount and to get the bonus courses. When you sign up, you're going to get the application first. If it's after August 28th, you've got to head over to creativrise.com and see if the application is still live or if we filled already. And we are starting September 10th and running for 6 weeks. I cannot wait. So anyways, guys, what a wrap on today's episode. Such a fun episode on Airbnb, all this stuff. If you want to learn more about pitching, that is a massive part of the mastermind. So make sure you're there, and we'll catch you next week on the Creativ Rise podcast. See you guys there.